First, we will cover the theory section and then we will move to the hands-on where we will try to create buckets, we'll try to upload an object, and then we will see different settings associated with the Amazon S3 product. Let's understand about S3 in details. So Amazon S3 is Amazon Simple Storage Services. As the name suggests, it's simple. That means it's a managed service from Amazon. You don't need to do anything from the management side. This was one of the first AWS services introduced in the year 2006. Yes, of course, the first was Simple Queue services. S3 is object stored services. The max size per object is 5 TB. You can go up to 5 TB of size, which is really huge per object. It's available in all AWS regions. So it doesn't matter where you are in US, you are in North Virginia, you are in Asia, you are in Singapore, you are in India, you should be able to create bucket in that region and use it. There are multiple flavors of S3 available. We are going to look into different flavors in next slides. Yes, it does provide unlimited storage. You can continue uploading new objects, new files, doesn't matter what size it is. It will grow as per the usage. So the most important point we discussed, it's an object storage. That means it stores the objects as a key value pair, where key is the path of the object and value is the object itself. It's something like database. In this example, I have mentioned that suppose you have a bucket called my bucket. Inside that you have a directory called files and then images, and the object is bg.jpg. Key is the bucket name, like my bucket, and then you have directories like files, images, and then bg.jpg. And the value is the file itself. So you can consider something like a database where you mention the key and the value is the file itself. So you can always access the object from its key. Why S3? Now it is a highly scalable and durable product. It's secure in so many fashions that we are going to discuss in detail in next couple of slides. And the availability is also very high. It's a very cost-effective product. You pay only for what you are using. So today, if you're using a terabyte of object uploads, tomorrow, if it reduces by size or it increases by size, accordingly, the price you will need to pay. The data transfer out from S3 can be optimized with the help of products like CloudFront. The choice of various types, depending upon the various use cases, is up to you, whether you want to use long-term storage or you want to have a very high redundant storage. You can always select what kind of S3 flavor you want to use. It will also help you in terms of visibility and compliance. You can enable logs, you can have different analytics components running on top of it. You can view what is happening in your account in your S3 bucket. It can also work as a data lake. That means huge amount of data can be stored inside the S3 bucket. And from there, later point of time, a lot of analytical tools can be integrated with. One example is Athena is a product which allows you to run SQL query on top of S3 objects. So if you have a text-based object stored inside S3, you can run Athena to find out different queries or different outputs using the SQL commands. Let's learn about different types of S3 storage class. The most common is S3 standard. Then we have S3 standard infrequent access. We also have S3 intelligent tiering. We have S3 Glacier, we have S3 Glacier Deep Archive, we have one zone infrequent access, and the latest one we have is S3 Outpost. So we are going to learn about all these different flavors one by one. So S3 standard is the most commonly used S3 storage class. It is used when there is low latency and high throughput performance is required. It is designed for durability of 99.99% of object across multiple availability zone. It's highly durable. It's also resilient against events that impact an entire availability zone. So that means in worst scenario, even if entire availability zone is knocked out, you can still fetch your object. See the difference. Durability is 99.99%, almost 100% you can say. And availability is 99.99%. It's not 99s. but still 99.99 is pretty high. Now it is backed with Amazon S3 SLAs for availability. It also supports SSL for data transfer in transit and encryption of data at rest. Now this is very important for compliance regions where while moving the data, it should be encrypted, and when the data is also stored at S3, it should be encrypted. There are kind of different encryptions available. The different options for encrypting the objects are available. We are going to learn about that in one of the slides. Then using S3 lifecycle management for automatic migration of objects to another S3 storage class is possible. So what we understand is S3 standard offers high durability, availability, and performance object storage for frequently accessed data. Because it delivers low latency and high throughput, S3 standard is appropriate for a wide variety of use cases, include cloud applications, websites, content distribution, mobile and gaming applications. And also you can use it for big data analytics. S3 storage class can be configured at object level. This is important. You can have different objects inside same S3 bucket stored in different storage classes. You can also use S3 lifecycle policy to automatically transition objects between different storage class without any application changes. Next is S3 intelligent tiering. Amazon S3 intelligent tiering or S3 intelligent tiering is only cloud storage class that delivers automatic storage cost saving when data access pattern changes without performance impact or operational overhead. For a small monthly object monitoring and automation charge, S3 intelligent steering monitors access patterns and automatically moves objects that have not been accessed to a lower cost access tiers. That means you don't need to worry which object is frequently accessed and which is not. It automatically monitors those objects, and if the object is not accessed concurrently 30 days, it will be moved to the next storage class. Now S3 intelligent tiering delivers automatic storage cost saving in two low latency and high throughput access tiers. For data that can be accessed asynchronously, customers can choose to activate automatically archiving capabilities within the S3 intelligent tiering storage class. There are no retrieval charges in S3 intelligent tiering. If an object in the infrequent access tier is accessed later, it automatically moves back to the frequent access tier. So example, you have a very long tail of content. You have a maybe media company and you have huge list of songs or media files that you want to deliver, but some of them are hot content where people are accessing the newer releases and very hot albums very frequently. At the same time, you have a very old song maybe recorded in the 1970s, which very rarely it is accessed. So you can save cost on such content. No additional tiering charges apply when the objects are moved between access tiers within the S3 intelligence tiering storage class. It is an ideal storage class for data with unknown, changing or unpredictable access patterns, independent of object size or retention period. You can use it as a default storage class for data lakes, analytics, and new application. It is designed for a durability of 99.99% of objects across multiple availability zones. And just like S3 standard, it is providing you the same durability. Now, in terms of availability, it is designed for 99.9% of availability over a given year. That means if you compare with S3 standard that was 99.99% available, this promises 99.9% of availability. It is backed with Amazon S3 SLAs again, just like S3 standard. For small monthly monitoring and auto tiering charges, you can manage the cost very well. There is no operational overhead, no retrieval charges, no additional tiering charges apply when the objects are moved between access tiers within the S3 intelligent tiering storage class. There is no minimal storage duration applicable as well. The third is S3 standard infrequent access. It is again same low latency and high throughput performance of S3 standard flavor. It is designed for a durability of 99.99% of objects across multiple availability zones, just like S3 standard. It is resilient against events that impact the entire availability zone. Your data will not be lost. Data is resilient in the event of one entire availability zone destruction. Now it is designed for a 99.9% availability over a given year. It is backed with Amazon S3 SLAs. It supports SSL for data in transit and encryption of data at rest. Again, S3 lifecycle management policies applicable to this as well. Fourth is S3 one zone infrequent access. It provides same low latency and high throughput performance of S3 standard. It is designed for durability of 99.99%, just like S3 standard, for a single availability zone. Now, it is designed for 99.5% of availability over a given year. It is backed by S3 SLAs, it supports SSL, and lifecycle management policies are applicable. Now, because S3 one zone infrequent access stores data in a single AWS availability zone, data stored in this storage class will be lost in the event of availability zone destruction. Next is Amazon S3 Glacier. S3 Glacier is a secure, durable, and low-cost storage class for data archiving. It is used for archiving purposes. You can reliably store any amount of data at costs that are cheaper than on-premise solutions. To keep cost low yet suitable for varying needs, S3 Glacier provides 3 retrieval options that range from few minutes to hours. You can upload objects directly to S3 Glacier or use S3 lifecycle policies to transfer data between any of the S3 storage class for archiving data to S3 Glacier. It is designed for 99.99% of durability across multiple availability zones. Data is resilient in the event of one entire availability zone destruction. Supports SSL, it's low cost design, ideal for long-term archival. Its configurable retrieval time provides you flexibility between minutes to hours, and accordingly you are charged. S3 Put API for direct uploads to S3 Glacier and S3 lifecycle management for automatic migration of objects is doable. Remember the use case. Long-term archival. So if you have huge amount of data that you want to archive, maybe for compliance reasons, or you want to keep the data forever, you can use S3 Glacier for storage. Another flavor of S3 Glacier is S3 Glacier Deep Archive. S3 Glacier Deep Archive is Amazon's S3's lowest cost storage class and supports very long-term retention and digital prevention for data that may be accessed once or twice in a year maybe. It is designed for customers, like particularly those in highly regulated industries such as financial services, healthcare, and public sectors that retain data sets for maybe 7 to 10 years or even longer period of time to meet regulatory compliance requirement. S3 Glacier Deep Archive can also be used for backup and disaster recovery solutions, and it is very cost effective and easy to manage alternative to magnetic tape drives, whether they are on-premises library or off-premises services. It is always better to store those data to S3 Glacier Deep Archive. All objects stored in S3 Deep Archive are replicated across at least 3 geographically dispersed availability zones, and hence it is protected by 99.99% of durability and can restore within 12 hours period. It is lowest cost storage class designed for very long storage. It is ideal alternative for magnetic tape libraries, retrieval time 12 hours. So it is very convenient to use this as a very long-term storage. So companies who are using tape drives for traditional storage and archiving of data, this can be a replacement. And finally, S3 Outpost. It is the newest release of S3 flavor. Amazon S3 on Outpost delivers object storage to your on-premises S3 AWS Outpost environment. Using the S3 APIs and feature available in AWS regions today, S3 on Outpost make it easy to store and retrieve data on your outpost, as well as secure the data, control access, tag them, and report it on the S3. It is designed to durably and redundantly store data on your outposts. Encryption is possible. You can use server-side encryption using S3 managed keys or server-side encryption using customer managed keys. It provides authentication and authorization using IAM and S3 access points. Transfer of data to S3 regions using AWS Data Sync is possible. and S3 lifecycle expiration actions are also possible on S3 Outpost. So we learned about different S3 storage classes. To summarize everything, this table represents what we discussed today. All of them are 11 nines of durability, designed for availability changes as per the storage class, starting from 99.99 and goes as low as 99.5% in terms of S3 one zone infrequent access. In S3 standard, S3 intelligent tiering, S3 standard infrequent access, S3 glacier and S3 glacier deep archive, 3 or more availability zones are used. Now you can read more about these granular detail in the official document. No one expects you to by heart everything, all these points in your mind, but yes, do understand the different availability, different durability, different SLAs possible on different storage class, and understand in what scenario which storage class is most applicable to you. Let's also understand about S3 security. So S3 security allows resource-based access control using object ACL or bucket policy. Based on the access permission to a user given by the IAM policy, one can access, one can do write, one can do put, one can do get to different S3 objects. You can also enable multi-factor authentication for certain actions like deletion of the object. Another important feature is versioning of the objects. It can also be used to undelete those objects. And remember this, that when you are enabling versioning, all versions counted towards storage until the objects are permanently deleted. Now let's quickly also understand about S3 data security and availability. It supports cross-region replication. So if you have data in one region, say Singapore, and tomorrow you want to replicate across different regions, maybe the North Virginia, you can do that. It supports different layers of security for different compliance purposes, and also as per the latencies requirement, you can select which S3 region you want to use. Example, if your target audience are in Singapore or India or maybe US West, you do want to select S3 region in that particular region so that latency is minimized, and there are certain restrictions from local governing bodies for data retention in that region itself. So for that, you can use S3 in that particular region itself. Now we spoke about encryption of data in S3, which is data at rest. There are 4 kind of different encryption is possible. It can be broadly divided into 2 categories. One is the customer encrypt the data before uploading, that is called client-side encryption. And second is when object is stored to the server, that is S3, there the encryption process happens. And on the server side encryption also, there are 3 different possibilities. One is by using the key managed by S3, second is the key managed by the customer, and third, key management system on AWS. So hence the 4 different data encryption possibilities: SSE S3, SSE C, SSE KMS, and client-side encryption. And finally, let's quickly understand how effectively one can upload data to S3. The feature is called S3 transfer acceleration. As the name says, it accelerates the S3 transfers for uploading the files. Making use of the distributed CloudFront POPs, the uploads are accelerated. So these CloudFront POPs are located near to the end users. So instead of you actually directly connecting to the S3, which is located at a remote location, maybe from India to US, you are actually connected to a CloudFront POP located maybe in your same city or very near to you, very close to you. And once you connected there, from there till S3, that packet transfer happens on AWS controlled environment. Hence it is accelerated. Please remember that this is not a free service. The upload speeds are improved, and if you want to see how much helpful it is, you can use the S3 acceleration speed comparison tool. I ran this tool while recording the previous slides. Let's see how the result looks like. So you can see that for me, from my location, for North Virginia, the S3 acceleration is working 43% faster than the direct upload. And since there are multiple AWS regions, this tool also gives you visibility into how different regions are performing with S3 transfer acceleration enabled and without it. We can see that S3 transfer acceleration is actually helping me to improve the S3 upload speeds. This is very useful tool if when you have a distributor team which upload to the same S3 bucket. Now time for demo. In the demo, we are going to create an S3 bucket. We are going to upload some sample file, and then we will play around with the different settings possible in S3 console. The same can be achieved through S3 CLI tool also, but for today's demo, we will just use the user interface for playing with the settings. So I have logged to S3 console and I have opened S3 product here, and this is how it will look like. It will give you option to create the bucket. On the left hand panel, you can see different options related to S3 product. You can list the buckets, you can list the S3 access points. Let's try to create our first S3 bucket. We'll click on create bucket. The first thing it asks is the bucket name. Now, just like a domain name, it has to be a unique name. The same bucket name cannot be used more than once by different users. So I'll write the name here is dumb tutorials bucket test, because this is unique, it's globally unique. And then it asks me where I want to create this bucket. So let's create this bucket in Virginia, US East 1. And by default, it blocks all the public access. Now this is highly recommended setting. You should not let your bucket open for the global audience. Otherwise, you will end up losing all your sensitive data to public. There's another product called CloudFront, which can be connected to S3. S3 can act as an origin, the source for delivering the files to the global audience. You can allow only CloudFront to access your S3 bucket. No one can access S3 bucket directly. And then it asks you whether you want to enable S3 versioning or not. If you enable S3 versioning, it is going to allow versioning of the objects. So once you upload an object and later you modify the object, keep the object name same, and you upload in the same directory, it will create the second version out of it, and so on and so forth. Now, next option is you can add tags here. I can say type is equal to production. So you will have visibility into what kind of environment your usage are happening. You can enable encryption here. I can select S3 SSE S3 or maybe using KMS. For our demo, we will just disable encryption. And then there are other advanced settings. You can enable object lock. Enabling object lock will permanently allow object in this bucket to be locked. And you have to acknowledge if you are enabling this, because it may incur additional charges. So for this demo, we'll just disable this and we click create bucket. Now it will quickly create my bucket in the region I have allocated and also the name I chose. It says access is restricted, the bucket and objects are not public. Let's select our S3 bucket. This is our S3 bucket. Right now it doesn't have any object. Now I will try to upload our first object. You can click on upload button, or if you want to create a subfolder inside this bucket, you can do that. It is not actually a folder, but for your ease, it is actually grouping the objects together in the key that we saw while discussing object storage, and hence it acts like a bucket. You can just click on upload objects, or you can just drag an object and drop here. Now while uploading this object, it is asking me what permission I want to give. Access control list. I can select from a predefined ACL. I can specify individual ACL permissions. Preferred ACL is private, and then you can have different properties associated with this. Most important is the storage class. The default is standard. If you want to change, you can change to a standard infrequent access, or maybe one zone infrequent access. It's up to you. I will just go ahead and upload this object in S3 standard. And then server-side encryption, I said do not specify. I'm not adding any tag right now. No metadata, but if you want to add metadata, you can do that. Metadata is like additional response headers which you want to serve. Example, say this is a MP3 file. I want to add a particular content type header, or If you want, you can add expats headers as well. So it's up to you how you want to play around with this metadata. Now we will simply upload the object. Click on upload. Depending upon the size of the object, it will upload the object in S3 bucket that we defined. So we have very first object uploaded to S3 bucket. We can click on this object and it will show the properties associated with the object. It shows the various permissions associated with the object. If I have enabled version, it will show me the version with version ID associated with the object. If I want to just download this object and I just copy this URL and try to download, it will not let me download the object. Why? Because remember, we disable access for the objects inside the bucket. That's the reason it is not allowing me to download the object. Now if I still want to download the object, I can click on this download URL. It allows me to download the object using some signed URL mechanism. Now let's go ahead and see the bucket properties that we created. So if you see the property, it says versioning. I have enabled versioning, hence it is showing me versioning enabled here. The tag that I associated here, encryption settings. If I enable intelligent tiering, archiving configuration, it will show me here. I have not enabled server-side logging, but if you want, you can enable server-side logging options for auditing and troubleshooting purposes. Next is AWS CloudTrail data events. I have not configured anything here, but if you want to enable or configure CloudTrail, you can enable by clicking here and enabling few of the settings. And finally, the most important and useful and highly underrated feature is event notification. So you can play around with various events associated with the S3 bucket. Example, if you are creating a workflow where you upload an object, say a media file, and you want to run encoding as soon as it gets uploaded to this S3 bucket, you can create an event notification. And with this, you can tie different products like SNS or SQS or a Lambda functions as soon as the action is completed. So you can give a name. This is my test name. If you want to only allow this to occur when objects are uploaded to a particular prefix, maybe say media directory, and only for maybe MP4 file. And then you want to fire event notification on all objects create events, or whether you want to just have it on maybe put, and if someone deletes it, if it's up to you how you want to play around with this. And finally, you need to select whether you want to call a Lambda function or you want to use SNS topic or maybe SQS queue when this event is triggered. And finally, you can click on save changes. Right now we are not making any changes. You will just click on cancel. Here is an option to enable transfer acceleration. So if you want to enable transfer acceleration, click on edit and simply enable transfer acceleration and click on save changes. If you want to enable this option called requester pays, this means if the object is downloaded by someone, they have to pay for the data transfer. And finally, this is very small trick to host your static website using S3. So if you have a static website, you don't need to host it anywhere on the servers. You can use S3 for delivering the content of the website. You can just enable static website hosting using this button. You can define which index file will be accessed using this URL of yours, which error document would be handled if there is any maybe 404 error. If you want to have any redirectional rule, you can mention that here. There's another way to host your website is using Amazon CloudFront, which is a recommended way because the objects are cached near to the end user. I have created another tutorial in detail about CloudFront. If you want to learn more about it, I will leave the link in the description so that you can refer to it and learn more about it. But just know that you can enable static website hosting from S3 from here itself, or you can use Amazon CloudFront for delivering your static website to all the end users across. Then comes the permission tab, where you can see the bucket and objects are not public. Everything is green because this is the recommended setting. We have disabled all public accesses. If you want to create your own bucket policy, you can click on edit and you can write your own policies. You can see policies examples by clicking the button here, or you can use policy generator for creating your own policy. This is also useful when suppose you have a CloudFront distribution running in a different account and you still want only that particular account or that cloud front end running in that account to access your S3 bucket, you can write the bucket policy that do allow read access or get access to that cloud front configuration in that particular account. And then it shows the object ownership and then ACL associated with your account. There's another setting which is called cross origin resource sharing, that is CORS. This CORS headers enablement can be done at S3 layer itself. You can click on edit. There are CORS configuration already available for various use cases. So depending upon what type of CORS header you want to enable, you can mention that policy in CORS settings. So I already have a policy created. So I'm going to use the same policy and just paste the policy here and click on save changes. And my CORS setting is saved. Likewise, you can look into different metrics related to the bucket, like total bucket size, total number of objects, different storage classes. And if you are enabling replication, you can see the replication metrics here as well. Now finally, in management tabs, we can have the control of lifecycle policies. Like suppose you want to move the object to different storage class, depending upon the rule that you want to decide. Example, if my object is 45 days or older, move it to Glacier. That lifecycle rule I can define here. And you can create your own replication rule here. And there are many other configurations. And finally, you can create your own S3 access points by clicking on this button. So I hope now you're comfortable creating your own S3 bucket. You know what versioning is, you know how to enable encryption, you know how to write ACL, you know what is the best practice for S3 bucket, you know how to enable CORS headers, you know how to add a custom metadata like a response header to the S3 objects. Now you should be able to create your own bucket and play around with that, and you should be able to answer the questions associated with the S3 bucket. So now we are back to our presentation and we will just finish our tutorial, but before doing so, we will just understand some of the quick tips. Always use S3 transfer acceleration to accelerate upload process. There is an option to enable requester to pay for the data transfer. So you have a use case where you want the person who is downloading the object to pay for the data usage. You can enable that option. Remember that when you enable this option, the object will not be publicly accessible to everyone. Use proper tags for different purposes like for billing or for security reasons. S3 can be tied to various events which can trigger SNS, SQS or Lambda functions. It can be used for static website hosting. So if you want to serve a static website from S3 bucket, you can do that. You can use BitTorrent protocol for publicly available data download from P2P. And the most important part, do not keep bucket open to everyone. With this, I will conclude today's session. Hope this tutorial was useful to you. Please do not forget to subscribe my channel so that you don't miss any of the future updates.